All right, since it's 1 o'clock, we're just gonna get going. I will just do a small introduction of James. Is that Swenson?
Correct.
Yeah, an early wind fun maker here for today's Wazooki Ahi to talk about hunting and projects on Ho Chunk Nation land. Everyone, please welcome James and Early Wind.
All right, so our presentation is about hunting and projects on the Ho Chunk Nation land. So with our presentation, we're just going to be talking about mainly the hunting packet and I think maybe 3 projects that we're doing around our tribal lands. So the DNR has some hunting packets that are available for any tribal member that wants one. These packets are available at the TOB and at Baraboo, Wittenberg, and Nakusa Community Center. It's also available on the nation's website or using this QR code. This QR code is actually available on the hunting packet itself. So if you don't want to lug around the actual paper copy, you can just use this QR code and download it to your phone. So if you go onto the Ho Chunk Nation's website, you just click on the government tab and it'll take you to the government page. Click on natural resources and it'll take you to the natural resource page and you just scroll down until you see the Ho Chunk Nation hunting packet link. If you just use the QR code, it'll take you straight to the natural resources page, and yeah, you just scroll down until you see the hunting packet link. So this is the first page of the hunting packet. It goes over the regulations, definitions, and penalties. So there are 6 regulations set forth by the nation. The first one is you must be enrolled member of the Ho Chunk Nation. There are a few exceptions like non-Ho Chunk enrolled biological foster adopted children may hunt on Ho Chunk lands if accompanied by their Ho Chunk enrolled legal custodians. The second one is non-Ho Chunk enrolled members may hunt on Ho Chunk lands if they are accompanied by their legally enrolled Ho Chunk spouse. And the last one is non-Ho Chunk enrolled legal guardians may only accompany, not hunt on Ho Chunk lands with their Ho Chunk enrolled children. The second regulation is hunters must have license to hunt on that. I'm sorry, I lost this. Yeah, they must have a valid Wisconsin or federal license. The third one is they must abide by hunting and rules regulations as set by the state of Wisconsin. The fourth one is hunting is only allowed within designated tribal lands as defined in this packet. The fifth one is it's illegal to shoot a firearm within 100 yards of a building. And the last one is just hunt at your own risk. The second section just talks about definitions like tribal lands, Ho Chunk Trust, in Indian lands, fee simple lands, and just what a tribal member is considered and what a non-tribal member is considered. And this third section is just talks about penalties and whatnot if you destroy one of the places or if you illegally trespass on our properties. It's basically subject to penalties in tribal and state courts. Oh, whoops. So the hunting packet shows the white-tailed turkey and rough grouse zones. It also has the hunting season information as well as CWD information. The hunting packet also shows there are 30 hunting properties that the nation owns. The nation has about 8,500 acres that's dedicated to hunting. So the picture on the right shows all 30 properties throughout Wisconsin. Some properties range from 14 acres to 1,300 acres. Oh, there we go. So this is what it looks like for our hunting maps. Some properties will just have the county name, the town name, the section number, the township number, and the range number. Other properties will have like a complete address with like the city on there, as well as the other things that I just mentioned. So in our packet, we talk about CWD. CWD is basically just a fatal disease that affects the nervous system of cervids like deer, elk, moose, and caribou. Transmission occurs when prions are shedded by infected animals, usually through like some saliva, urine, feces, and natural decomposition. So the prion is extremely resistant to decay. It usually lasts like years in the environment. Because of this, baiting and feeding and improper carcass disposal increases the risk of transmission. So there hasn't really been a documented case of CWD in humans, but the state agencies usually recommend against consuming meat from CWD infected deer. The state DNR usually has a CWD kiosk. It's basically where you just deposit your deer head so they can collect the lymph nodes. They have them all over the state. You usually just go on their webpage and you can find all the locations. The Ho-Chunk DNR actually has 5 of them. They're located over at the Whitetail Crossing convenience stores. One is in Black River Falls. The other one's in Baraboo, Nakusa, Toma, Wittenberg. And the picture to the right, it's the state DNR sampling needs for CWD. The orange shading is like the priority areas, and just the white is like the bottom south of Wisconsin is it has a lot of CWD, so they already pretty much did their samplings or sampling needs over there. And this page is just about deer baiting. It's a map of places that are prohibited and allowed. So, oh, let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay. So yeah, this map is just areas where you can bait and not bait, I guess. The gray area is where feeding is prohibited, and the white area is where you can legally bait. So our 30 properties we can't bait. Most of it is, or all of it's in the gray shaded area. So these are just videos that we took throughout the years that on our properties. So if you're hunting, this is what you could possibly see. This video was taken in Lisa Ward last year sometime here. And it basically just shows a duck or a doe and a buck together during rut. And this video is a barred owl just hooting. And this was over in Darst, which is in Black River Falls, right across Mission Road and 54 there. So this video is a muskrat over in Rockland, which is like located next to Sparta. This was taken near a beaver dam, or yeah, beaver dam. And this is also located in Rockland. This is a eastern screech owl. Yeah, that one actually scared me.
And we have duck boxes scattered around, and other wildlife find those duck boxes useful. And then we've had a few wood ducks in those boxes, but over the years it seems to be more other wildlife finding their finding those and making them their home. So it's kind of cool to see an owl using it. I think your next one has videos as well.
Yeah. So this is an otter in Rockland again. And this was taken over in Delsdam. I think it was the White Bear property. It's just two freshly born fawns. And this is a porcupine that I recorded in Delsdam as well.
You didn't see all that. Okay. So since we're talking about hunting, I want to kind of touch on how wolves can affect deer movement ecology. The wolves were extirpated from Wisconsin, or believed to be extirpated around 1960, and they recolonized in 1975, coming down from Canada into Minnesota and then into Wisconsin, and their population has slowly grown since then. And you can see the dates there. By the 1980s, there was only 25, and then over doubled, more than doubled, 95, and then 2012, and then this is last winter's rough estimate of 1,226. And so wolves bring a benefit by affecting the deer. What they do is, the deer are obviously smart enough to know this is a predator, I need to avoid them, and so they stay active and they're constantly moving, because if they stay in one spot, there's a chance that they will run into a wolf. And so by continuously moving, they reduce that chance of running into a wolf. And the benefit of that is the deer are browsing in different areas and allowing regeneration of vegetation in the areas that they're not in. And so you can kind of see it if you go down to some of the properties further south. The understories are very sparse, or if there is an understory, it's a lot of invasives. Um, Whereas, like, if you go up north, there's a lot of diversity in the vegetation in the understory. Um, so wolves have that added benefit. The challenge with that is because deer are constantly on the move, they're constantly wary of their surroundings. You run into hunters not being able to find that trophy deer that they were looking for. And the reason why is that deer is not going to stick around on their property for very long in, in the fear of running into a predator. And so to a hunter, it might appear that the deer's not there, but in reality, it's probably on the neighbor's property, or has moved even further away to someone else's property. And deer are also pretty smart. They know what properties are being hunted. They know that this property I need to avoid because I get spooked over here a lot. And if I just go next door, they have corn waiting for me. I don't have to worry about anyone bothering me, and there's safety at that neighbor's house. Another challenge that we're running into as wildlife and forestry people is deer know wolves don't like humans. And so they'll hang out, the deer will hang out in backyards and in cities. And that's the safest spot for them because wolves avoid humans because wolves know humans are dangerous. And if you run into a human, there's a chance that you will get killed. So a lot of deer are heavily or densely what's the word I'm looking for? Congregated around human settlements. And the downside of that is, you can't hunt within 100 meters of a human settlement. And that allows the deer populations to continue to grow in the safety of, the world that we're creating. So we have several projects out that we're doing on different properties. Darst here in Black River is one of the properties that the DNR has been working on quite a bit lately. We started out trying to create open areas for thermal cover as well as for grazing and browsing for the elk. That has expanded to managing the invasives on Darst. And you can kind of see in these pictures, all that green, if it was a native plant, though that green would be in shades of yellow, orange, and red. But they're all green because it's all buckthorn. And buckthorn's one of the first plants to green up in the spring, and it's the last plant to lose its leaves in the fall, and that allows it to store a ton of starch in its roots, and it allows it to outcompete and smother any competitors. And so you can kind of see there's Paul in the ASV, and he has torn through an area, and you can see that the trees are spaced out, and there's no young trees. I mean, there are some, but there's not a whole lot there, and it's mostly just mature trees, and that's because none of the young trees are able to grow in the shade of the buckthorn. And so he has cleaned out this whole area and the work that we're doing, it's a lot of work. The ASV, when we have dense spots like this, is amazing, but then there are other spots where the ASV can't get to because it's not as densely populated with buckthorn, and so we have to go in with brush mowers, which is like a weed whacker with a blade, that will knock down the buckthorn, and then we herbicide the stumps, and that's um, stump applicated herbicide, and that what that does is it allows the herbicide to get into the roots and kill the plant at the roots. We also do a foliar spray, which will basically starve out the buckthorn and force the buckthorn to use up all its starch and die out because it's starved to death. And then we have another project, the Tamarack project. We have a plot up in Wittenberg, a plot here in Black River, and then one in Toma. And the goal is to plant tamarack, so that way they can be poles for Japonica and other tribal structures. So that way the tribal members can continue their traditional beliefs and activities. We planted, probably a couple thousand, like 3,000 plus, easy.
Yeah.
And it's continuing. We're continuously adding new areas. Tamarack really likes the wet areas. It's part of like the pine family, but it is a deciduous tree in that it loses its pines. The pine needles, they're kind of like cush balls. They're really soft and pliable, and they turn yellow and orange, and then they fall off, and then they'll green up in the spring. It's kind of cool. So this is, if you're looking for tamarack, this is the time of year to kind of look for them, because you can find them. These pine looking trees are all yellow and look like they're dying, but they're actually just getting ready for the winter. And then we have another project. This one is one that Brandon and I kind of put together 2 years ago, and this is our third year. And Earl has been super helpful in making this project a lot easier. Usually it's just me going out and collecting cameras, but having that second person, especially on some of the larger properties like KVR, the Kickapoo Valley Reserve, they're so massive that it will take a whole day just to do one property. And so what we decided is we're going to do 20 cameras. They're randomly placed on the landscape using a program in ArcGIS that randomly generates points. We make sure that those points are about 180 meters away from each other, so that way we're not getting too much overlap of individuals that might go in front of those cameras. And then what I wanted to do is get like a snapshot of a whole year. And so, I could leave the cameras out there on one property for a whole year, or I could leave out the cameras for 1 month per season. And so the cameras are out there for, 4 months, but then I can get 3 properties at a time each year. This year is a little different. Two of the properties are small enough that we could split the cameras up. And so this year we're doing 4. And, maybe in the next coming years, as the properties get smaller, we might be able to do more properties, but we'd also have to balance out driving from one property to the next. And also kind of look at, what's the minimum size of a property that we're going to get actual valuable data. So I take the data that we collect and I put it into several different kind of diversity indexes, as well as a relative abundance index. And so the relative abundance index, you take the total number of events per species. So an event is considered a capture. So those events are spaced out every 5 minutes. Well, we consider that an event. So, the camera will go off once, and then, it might go off several times, but we have to wait for that 5 minute increment. And then we can say that's another capture. And then we divide those events by the number of trap days, and then multiply that by 100. And so that kind of gives you a rough idea of, the probability of a certain species to be captured within a trap day. And so at North Cave Yard, at all the properties, you can see that deer are very likely to be captured. So on a single trap night, deer is about 95% probable of being captured on that camera in that trap night. Raccoons 13%, gray squirrels 10%, and these were the top 3 species that were most likely to be captured in a single trap night. We did get quite a few other species, but they weren't as prevalent as deer, raccoons, squirrels, turkeys, and coyotes. But to make things easy, I kind of just put the top 3 on here. And it was kind of cool. North and South KVR are really close to each other, but there's quite a bit of difference. There's not as many deer on South KVR as there are on North KVR. And North KVR has, in the previous picture, you can kind of see North KVR is surrounded by quite a bit of grassland and quite a bit of farms, whereas South KVR is got some areas that are ag or grassier areas, but it's not as prevalent as in North KVR, where all this here is all grassland. Oops. And so those deer, they like that open area. There's a lot to forage in North KVR. Was cool seeing, the squirrels. There's a lot of mature oaks. And with mature oaks, there's also cavities to hide in. And so you're going to also see a spike in raccoons as well. And then I have another index. This is the Simpson's Diversity Index. And this is the likelihood of, if you randomly pick 2 pictures out of your collection, what's the likelihood that the 2 pictures you pick are going to be the same species. So this top one, we have a deer. So if I randomly pick another picture out, what's the likelihood that it's going to be another deer? And it's kind of a flip of the coin for North KVR, and in this case, we have an elk, and this picture is actually from Wazooki. And I was trying to find some really good close-up pictures for this demonstration. South KVR, about 1 out of 3. So take a 3-sided dice. I mean, I don't know how you would get, or a 6-sided dice, and then evens versus odds. What's the likelihood that you're going to get a raccoon? Oh, this time we got a bear. And then, this kind of shows that, the lower the percentage, the more diverse that property is going to be. So South KBR is actually the most diverse out of the 3 properties we did our first year. And I thought that was very interesting. I kind of expected a little bit more diversity over at Nine Eagles. But surprisingly, Nine Eagles was less diverse out of the 3. And flip that coin and you get another deer. So kind of a cool little demonstration, and it is kind of cool to kind of see the numbers play out. We have 10 properties so far. We've tabulated all the data from North and South KBR and Nine Eagles, and we're going through last year's data right now. It's about a terabyte worth of pictures, and it is very tedious, and it takes a long time to go through all of those pictures, especially when a camera decides to go off, 3,000 times, and you got to go through all 3,000 pictures in order to make sure that you didn't miss any wildlife in that collection. And it is a long day going through those. The next one is the Shannon Weiner index, and this one's really cool. This one looks at the complexity of the population, the evenness, and then also the effective number of species in that area. So the larger the number H is, the more complex that community is. And so if you look, South KBR is the most complex with 1.6. The higher that number, the closer it gets up towards like 3, then you have a really complex community. And the evenness, the closer this number gets to 1, the more likely each species is represented in equal numbers. And the likelihood of getting 1 is like impossible, because there is always going to be a slightly more of one species than another. If you look at the Maslow's hierarchy of numbers, the smallest numbers tend to be the most prevalent. So you're going to see a lot of smaller wildlife versus larger wildlife like a bear. And once again, South KBR did pretty good at 0.53. And then if you look at the effective number of species, North KBR almost 3. So those 3 species that we talked about earlier, the gray squirrel, the deer, and the raccoon. Whereas at South KBR, there's almost 5 different species there. And, once again, those turkey and coyote really dominating and bringing those numbers up. And then Nine Eagles being the least productive or the least diverse, 2.5. So, and I think that one also had quite a few turkeys on it as well, and raccoons for sure. And Nine Eagles is a unique property. It's got a lot of oaks on it, a lot of cavities for creatures to hide. And then I put on some cool pictures of some of the wildlife that we've caught over the years. We got a fisher there climbing on a tree, black bear. It's really cool catching black bear on cameras because we know they're there, but at the same time you don't until you see one on camera and you're like, whoa, we had like a female bear with 3 cubs, and that was really neat to see. Bears, they will have as many cubs as nature will allow them, in that they have the fat stores and the resources to provide for those cubs. So 3 is quite a few. 1 or 2 is pretty common, but having 3 just shows that environment is really healthy. Bobcats, you know, they're a lot more prevalent than I expected. Um, and it's really cool, especially when you get some of the bigger bobcats or individuals that hang out in the same area, and you're kind of like, whoa, like this is their area, and you can smell them sometimes marking up areas. Mink was another one that was really cool to see. You can see it swimming in the water down there, um, and you know probably back in the day they were really prevalent, but because of the fur trade, their numbers have dwindled quite a bit. And to get, I think we've gotten 3 mink on camera so far. Um, to see that is really cool. One, it shows that the water is healthy enough to support a predator like that. And two, that there isn't any further hunters in that area to allow that individual to get captured on camera versus in a trap. And then the badger, that one's a unique one. That one we got captured with Goja Hawaii youth group. They had cameras out at Wazee, and they caught this badger on the cameras that they put out. And we've yet to catch any badgers on any other properties. And so to catch one at Wazee, so close to the TOB, was really cool. And we have cameras out there, and I hope that we'll catch that individual again. But because if we catch more of a certain species, then that's the likelihood that that species is able to hang out at that property because there's resources there that will support them. And so it's really cool to see different wildlife. And then that concludes our presentation. Told you we could do almost 40 minutes. Yeah. So anyone have any questions?
Guys, were you all done with the presentation then?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I thank you guys for joining us today. As always, as a reminder, today's Wazooki Wo'ehi will be on our Ho-Chunk Nation Department of Health Facebook page, as well as our website. I thank Early Wind and James for joining us today. You guys have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much. Take care.